The wilderness of Alaska is unpredictable and dangerous. People who live here are taught from childhood to consider themselves part of the biosphere, whether it's the lynx living on the mountains, the bison, and wild horses, or the Alaska brown bears weighing thousands of pounds. Every creature can easily take your life. Today, Atz, who failed in hunting with a compound bow last spring, plans to go out alone to hunt a black bear to redeem himself. This time, he's heading to the other side of the Kashmak Bay Mountain, a journey that will take about 8 hours by this small boat. Recalling last year's rainy weather, which left Atz empty-handed, he is determined to take down a black bear this year, even though he's nearly 70 years old. Spring black bears are Atz's favorite. According to him, after a winter's hibernation, their meat is tender and delicious. This is his first hunt of the year. After entering the forest with his gear, heavy rain soon poured from the sky. Finding a spot to camp, Atz took out his binoculars and spotted a black bear grazing about 300 meters away. Snapping back to reality, Atz jogged into hunting mode. The compound bow is most accurate within 50 meters, but for Atz, he needs to get within 20 meters to ensure a clean kill. Moving against the wind, observing and advancing, he hid behind a tree trunk until the black bear came into view. Though the bear was visible, too many dead branches blocked Atz's line of sight. He suddenly leaned back, drew the bowstring, closed one eye, and aimed only to see the black bear retreat into the dead tree trunk. After considering that he couldn't guarantee a one-shot kill, Atz chose to retreat. This opportunity was missed, but Atz wasn't ready to leave. He decided to scout the area first. The black bear tracks on the grass showed that the recently awakened bear loved these fresh grass seeds. The unpredictable weather had just cleared after the rain, and the sun reappeared. Atz needed to build a blind in the right spot, waiting for the black bear to return. The spruce branches below would help conceal him. Hunting was no joke. Atz needed food for winter. After setting up, it was a matter of patience. 3 hours passed in a blink, and a massive black bear appeared in sight. Atz had only one chance, a single shot to ensure success. At this range, a hit was possible, but not necessarily fatal. If the bear charged at him, it wouldn't be worth the risk. Finally, watching the bear leave, Atz gave up again. The next day, fully prepared, he ventured out again. After a long trek, he returned to his previous blind position, where the black bear was already waiting. Atz's hand slowly moved toward his compound bow. The bear had its back to him now, and the arrow was nocked. There was no turning back. With a single shot, he hit the bear's vital spot. The bear ran wildly before collapsing, leaving fresh red bloodstains on the moss. Atz didn't rush to retrieve it immediately. Instead, he waited a few minutes before following the tracks. When he finally found the bear, his tense heart relaxed. This black bear's meat would help Atz survive the winter. After a prayer of gratitude in the wilderness, he began butchering the meat, cutting it into packable pieces. The hide and meat were bundled up, weighing nearly 10 pounds. Atz struggled a bit to carry it, but this hunt proved that he was still a force to be reckoned with. On Kodiak Island, Alaska, Otto, Jane, and Melissa embarked on a massive mission. Today, they planned to fence off the beach to capture some American bison. Their goal was to help these endangered bison relocate, away from poachers, ensuring their safe reproduction. Otto's plan was to drive them down the hill, trapping them at the shoreline. To herd them, they relied solely on the roaring helicopter blades, forcing the bison toward the beach. An estimated 40 to 50 bison were present. Suddenly, Otto, who had been hiding behind cover, stood up, guiding the herd toward their destination. As long as they didn't escape uphill, keeping them along the beach would ensure the entire group was corralled. Kelly, the helicopter pilot, worked hard to steer, leaving the bison momentarily disoriented, just enough to enter the enclosure. Once the bison were secured, everyone moved cautiously. Such a large herd represented a significant fortune. Otto's purpose in relocating them was to prevent theft. After the bison calmed down, a walkway would be built to load them onto a ship, taking them off Kodiak Island. A large team worked swiftly to lay the runway. Wild bison were fierce and untamed, easily provoked by minor disturbances. The constant clanging of tools filled the air until the structure was complete, ready for the bison to be released. It was nearly dark, and the tide would rise soon, forcing them to wait until the next day to proceed. The following day, the herded bison began boarding the ship. Once all were aboard, Otto retracted the ramp. After ensuring the vessel and bison were secure, they set sail. These were likely the first wild bison to be transported by sea. The cramped Chuansong made the bison's massive bodies appear crowded, but there was no alternative. 3 bulls were already butting heads inside. The journey would take 5 hours. Before reaching Otto's destination, Sikuliak Island, the new home for these wild bison. After 5 grueling hours, the bison finally settled. It was time to set them free. As the bison bolted away, unrestrained, the conservation effort came to an end. In the remote Fox Valley of Alaska, Atz and his son, Lee, prepared to climb a 1,200-meter high mountain to hunt for winter meat. The thought of tracking plump blueberry-eating black bears filled Atz with excitement. Blueberry bear meat was his favorite. Autumn had arrived, and bears were preparing for hibernation, making this a risky time to hunt. A single black bear could yield around 180 pounds of meat. Not as much as a moose, but still substantial. After 2 to 3 hours of hiking, they crossed the tree line to reach the blueberry patch. Bear droppings littered the ground, and Atz followed the trail, eager. At the summit, a dark spot appeared. Through binoculars, Atz confirmed it was a black bear feeding on blueberries. Downwind, their scent was unmistakable, so they needed to move quickly, uphill. Gear in hand, they advanced cautiously, scaling the ridge. But the bear below kept moving. An hour and a half later, they reached the optimal hunting spot within 300 meters. From a slope, Atz signaled his son, and they both crouched behind rocks, adjusting their weapons silently. At 300 meters, the bear continued foraging. Staying calm was crucial. Atz fired first a miss. Lee followed, and the bear fell, requiring a final shot to ensure it was down. Standing up, they joked about their lack of coordination, but the hunt was successful. Approaching the bear, they acknowledged the gravity of taking a life, offering a prayer of gratitude before preparing to butcher the meat. A sharp knife sliced through the bear's flesh, yielding hundreds of pounds of red meat. The hide would be taken to a hunter's cabin for tanning. The day's hunt was complete. For Atz, now 70 with a full white beard, such opportunities were rare. Together, they packed the meat and slowly descended the mountain. Kodiak Island, Alaska. Atz prepared to capture a legendary prey living in the mountains before winter arrived. This was the last chance before winter. Before winter, meat in the fridge was the foundation for survival. This time, his teammate was Travis, young, strong, and very familiar with the area. Together, they were sure to hunt a bighorn sheep with ease. In such rugged terrain, hunting required adventure. Highland white sheep preferred steep positions to avoid being easily caught. The only way to capture them was to follow their footsteps up the mountain. By the stream, Atz and Travis walked carefully on steep rocks. This game, originally for the young, still suited 70-year-old Atz, and his stamina was no less. Travis raised binoculars to scan the distant slope, but layers of mountains blocked the view. They had to keep tracking. These prime proteins lurked on cliffs. Atz, being older, stepped cautiously. The steep cliffs were no joke. Even young Travis, scouting ahead, couldn't avoid slipping. Finally, after 4 to 5 hours, they reached the summit, a flat, open area with towering cliffs on either side and misty rain above. Setting up a scope, they spotted a ram a few kilometers away. To hunt them, only sheep over 8 years old or with fully curled horns could be targeted. But the weather wasn't suitable for hunting today. They had to camp overnight and wait for clearer skies. The next day, the challenging hunt continued. Strong winds blew, but there was no time to complain. Hunting meant facing surprises. Travis climbed first to a high point and spotted a herd grazing nearby. When Atz joined him, they saw 3 or 4 huntable adult bighorn sheep. Atz let Travis take this chance. 2 hunters would be less effective than 1. Travis found a spot, aimed, and fired. The lead sheep fell. Excitement surged as they hugged, then approached the sheep. A clean kill was followed by butchering, skinning, gutting, and packing the meat. Mutton was the best winter meat. Though the sheep belonged to Travis, he generously shared half with Otz, ensuring Otz's winter supply included both bear and sheep meat. After packing, they descended, lit a gas stove, and grilled fresh sheep intestines. Unseasoned, the roasted meat tasted delicious as they reminisced about the hunt. On Alaska's southern coast, along the rugged Kenai Peninsula, lived the Kilcher family. They had settled there 80 years ago, seeking a simple, free life. Atz, introduced earlier, was one of them. The story began with their father, Yule Kilcher, who moved from Switzerland to Alaska during World War II. To escape the war, he and his wife raised 8 children, 6 daughters, 2 sons. Now, the Kilchers owned 638 acres, with 3 generations still living there. Atz, the eldest, guarded the family as its protector. He had a son, Lee, and Lee's wife, Jane, and their 2 children. Otto, the elder, ran a cattle ranch and rarely hunted. His son Ivan and wife Eve were also core family members. Winter was approaching, and the short summer required 3 tasks: storing fuel, feeding livestock, and hunting. Otto had long abandoned hunting for cattle, while Atz, Lee, and Ivan relied on hunting and fishing. To survive winter, they needed 200 pounds of fish and 200 pounds of red meat. Alaska's autumn was barely a week. Summer and winter blended seamlessly. By mid-October, winter was near, but Lee's fridge was still empty. With moose season over, he planned to hunt black bears for meat, teaming up with neighbor Mike. Atz, who had been searching the bay for bears, had bad news: no tracks. They might have to switch to grizzly bears, which were harder to hunt and had worse meat. Only 2 ways to legally kill one: a permit or self-defense. Worse, Otto's ranch had just lost a cow to a grizzly at the bay's tip. Atz urged them to guard the ranch that night. Lee agreed, and the 3 rode out to search for tracks. Outside the fence, wild horses loomed, threatening their foals. One kicked Mike, dislocating his shoulder. With no doctor nearby, they had to reset it themselves. After Mike's arm fully recovered, he was no longer fit to continue tracking the brown bear. Now, it was Atz and his son who would take on the mission. Late at night, they arrived at the spot where the bull had been hunted. In the dim light, the slaughtered bull was not far away, and there seemed to be a large, dark spot, possibly a brown bear. The 2 raised their weapons and fired, but missed after several shots. They moved closer, finding signs of gnawing and bear claw marks. Yet they missed the chance, and failed to catch the brown bear. The bull killed by the bear was also inedible. Winter was approaching again. How would they secure food? Slaughtering a 6-year-old cow was no easy task. Though reluctant to pull the trigger, Otto had to make a choice. Killing the old cow weighed heavily on Otto's heart, but there was no turning back now. The black bull was hung high as winter meat, ready for butchering. To prevent spoilage, the blood had to be drained immediately. The hide was peeled and saved for future use. A single cow could yield around 400 pounds of meat, enough to sustain everyone through winter. Next, Otto gathered everyone to set up a grill, roasting some beef and heart to eat. The cooked red meat made him forget his pain, allowing him to savor the flavor. In a way, this was the best outcome for the old cow. Meanwhile, Lee stood before a cluster of bright red berries, a favorite food of black and brown bears. To ease the family's winter food shortage, he ventured into the wild again, hunting for black bears. Just one bear. It could feed the entire family for winter. But time was running out. He hiked into the canyon from the stream. Alone in the Alaskan wilderness, a dangerous endeavor. Yet for winter provisions, Lee pressed deeper into the canyon. After resting in a tent by the bay overnight, he resumed his search for the black bear. So far, no traces had been found in the canyon. Should he keep hunting or retreat? Lee was torn. Sometimes, frustration and helplessness prevailed. After a full day of effort, he missed his chance and had to leave. Driving home, Lee found his uncle Otto had already prepared his share of meat. Regardless, this would tide him over for a while. With it, he could fill his freezer and support his family of 4. The Kilcher clan, owned a 600-acre farm on the southern Kenai Peninsula, equivalent to 60 football fields, or 300 standard basketball courts. Weather forecasts warned a major storm would arrive in 3 days. After discussing with his younger brother Otto, Atz planned to retrieve the cattle grazing at the northern bay in the coming days, while the younger generation stayed home to gather firewood for winter. They needed enough to last until March. At the end of the bay lay Fox Valley. Since Lee had failed to catch a black bear last time, the meat from his uncle Otto wasn't enough to sustain them through the entire winter. His wife, Jean, took to the sea, filled the freezer with fish. Because firewood storage was a priority, Lee spent the next fortnight felling trees. Alaska's bounty was abundant. Each lively catch weighed over 10 pounds. Last year, Lee and Jean's single trip yielded nearly 200 pounds of fish for winter. Salmon and halibut. They could serve as winter provisions. This year's haul looked promising too. 2 helpers on the boat, called by Jean, doubled their efficiency. Without them, Jean might have brought back only half. After collecting about 100 pounds of meat at Fox Bay, they filled half the freezer, ensuring at least partial winter security. Meanwhile, Ivan and Eve, staying behind, gathered vegetables for storage. Once snow fell, these crops would quickly rot, leaving them helpless. Potatoes and carrots, their primary winter carbs, were stored in the cellar, along with blueberry jam and canned goods. The cellar kept everything fresh. At the island's northern tip, Atz and his brother Otto rode to the cattle herd. A massive winter storm was coming, time to drive them back to the warmer southern home. Bad weather had already set in. The damp beach was muddy, and the herd included calves needing protection. If the icy rain persisted, some cattle might perish. The biggest challenge was crossing the river. High tides made the cattle fearful, and in midwinter, they grew restless in the temporary pen. After the rain stopped, the Atz and Otto brothers herded them across. A strong black bull led the way, and the rest followed step by step. 15 more miles of rocky terrain lay ahead. The journey was far from over. After returning the cattle, Otto's ranch welcomed new life. A newborn calf had arrived. The moment was thrilling, though the shivering calf, likely born the night before, was nearly cold to the touch. Ivan's hand confirmed the urgency. A warmer shed had to be built, and the calf needed hand feeding. The first 6 hours were critical. With the shed unfinished, unconventional methods were needed. Otto and his son brought a large blower to warm the trembling pair, chasing away the chill. Alaska before and after winter are 2 different worlds. Ivan and his wife Eve plan to go ice fishing today. A roaring chainsaw cuts a grid-like pattern in the snow and ice. An ice pick then breaks the outer layer of ice, creating a chance to catch freshwater fish. The current temperature is around 20 degrees Celsius. In winter, Alaska's ice can be 1 to 2 meters thick. The water that surfaces after breaking the ice is crystal clear. The depth likely exceeds 2 meters. Hands exposed to the air while baiting fingers go numb. The entire Kilcher family is preparing for winter. Eve is rushing to gather vegetables, while Otto prepares firewood and feed for the cows. Daylight now lasts only about 6 hours, and nights seem endless. Lee is also cutting logs with a saw, stockpiling firewood for winter. After a long wait, Ivan and Eve finally get a bite. Their fishing line shakes constantly, and soon a fresh lake trout is hooked. Then another lively trout follows. Back home safely, they enjoy a meal of vegetables from the cellar and fresh fish, warming up after the cold fishing trip. In a hurry, Otto didn't have time to build a warm cowshed, so early this morning, he set up a shelter with cowhide and metal sheets. The newborn calf must stay with its mother in the shed until it grows strong enough to join the herd. Alaska's harsh winter lasts 4 months. To survive, both humans and animals must push forward against the odds, welcoming spring. On Alaska's southern coast, Otto and his son Avon leave home on horseback to hunt ducks. Due to changing weather patterns, migratory ducks gather in Fox River, most commonly greenheads. The two enter the woods with rifles, father and son working together. They lie by the riverbank, watching the ducks swim. To be a good hunter, Stealth is essential. Creeping close, even if the prey seems small, respect and reverence are fundamental to hunting. Suddenly, a flock of geese flies over the river mouth. Ivan quickly raises his rifle and fires, but his aim is slightly off, missing all the targets. Luckily, it's migration season, and more prey keeps arriving from the north, giving Ivan another chance. He hits a flying target. A flash, and the goose falls into the water. Even better, 2 geese drift downstream. Ivan rushes to retrieve them with an oar. This winter, Ivan's wife Eve is pregnant. By spring, Ivan may become a father, so this hunt with Otto is one of their few outings. Carrying the 2 geese, they find an unexpected bonus. The geese's mouths contain dried fish, a surprising discovery. They continue to a spot to roast the ducks. On the way, Ivan spots another flock of geese and shoots one. In this river bend, Otto and Ivan set up a temporary shelter. They plan to hunt more ducks to take back. To pass the time, Otto uses a duck's trachea to mimic calls, but the sound isn't strong enough. Watching the geese fly by, Ivan fires again, this time with precision. Nearby, Otto starts a fire to roast the ducks. Ivan places the plucked geese over the flames. As time passes, the geese turn golden and crisp, sizzling with oil until it drips. Otto slices with a knife, and the first bite is crispy, tender, and fragrant. Inspired, Otto, who hasn't hunted in decades, picks up his rifle again. He tries his luck. A shot, and a goose falls into the bushes. The hunt ends with enough geese and ducks, but more importantly, it's a shared adventure between father and son. When Ivan's child is born, he hopes one day to relive these joys with his own children. On the Kenai Peninsula of Alaska, the Kilcher family, who inherited the land from their ancestors, settled here. As winter approached, the Atz family began hunting. Regrettably, they missed the chance to hunt a black bear at first. Now there's another opportunity. They can use the tide to forage at sea. Today, Lee and his wife sailed 40 kilometers to the bay in search of food. Many marine creatures appear on this mudflat, and the rock crevices are full of seaweed. Unfortunately, these 2 only wanted meat. Who can tell what kind of creature this is? It's said to be an egg-laying animal that produces tadpoles swimming into the sea. There are also many creatures on this marine coral reef. Lee poked open the seaweed with a stick. Inside was an octopus. To deal with these creatures, a can of soda can be used to scare them out, as octopuses dislike carbonation. Later, Jane tried to pull out an 8-armed octopus with a wire from a rock crevice. Squeezed through the narrow hole, a leg was torn off. In nature, like geckos, octopuses can also lose limbs to escape predators. If they survive, the limbs will regrow within weeks. Lee then pulled the large octopus out with the wire. It weighed about 5 to 6 pounds. The octopus's suckers had a suction force of dozens of pounds, immediately clinging tightly to Lee. As the tide slowly rose, the 2 prepared to leave. On the safe shoreline, Lee began to dissect the octopus. Almost the entire body was edible. Whether grilled or charred squid, none matched the octopus's toughness. To avoid chewing difficulties, the octopus needed a massage before cooking. It had to be softened raw. Jane used a stone to pound the tentacles tender before cooking. Wrapped in foil and placed on the fire, dinner would be ready in less than half an hour. The roasted octopus tasted incredibly sweet. No better food existed. The Kilcher family lives on the Kenai Peninsula of Alaska. Among them, the elder Otto runs a ranch. The cows walking along the beach are his property. Due to free-range grazing, they need to be driven south in winter and north to lush bays in summer. The strong adult cows are no problem, but the calves in the herd walk slowly and require human protection. Otto couldn't focus too much and continued driving the herd north. When the herd encountered rough waters, they had to stop to prevent scattering. Every year at this time, Otto faced challenges. Most calves were fine, except for one born just 3 days ago. Otto's son, Ivan, worried about his pregnant wife, Eva, and returned home. He called his friend August to help. To speed up the herd, they tied the calf to the car's hood. The rest of the herd then set off, back to their southern home. Ivan and his pregnant wife enjoyed a meaty dinner together. The farm also required tending. The ducks and chickens needed care. After eating, Ivan collected eggs from the coop and prepared firewood. These tasks were too much for his wife alone. Additionally, the planted vegetables needed watering, fertilizing, and weeding. For a grown man, this work was strenuous, let alone for a pregnant woman. Otto's herd reached the final pass, Fox River. Crossing this river meant no more dangerous terrain ahead. For adult cows, it was simple, but the newborn calf struggled. Worse, the herd wouldn't wait. If the calf fell behind, it would lose the herd's protection. Otto had no better solution. For 3 days, he carried the calf on the car to conserve its energy. But now, the critical step required the calf to cross alone. The best way was for Otto to ride a horse and pull the calf across. The newborn calf was stubborn. No matter how Otto tugged, it wouldn't budge. The calf's temper was legendary. Once in the water, the current's force was immense. The calf's body was fully submerged, only its head occasionally breaking the surface as it struggled. After Otto reached the shore, he hurried back to check on the calf. Fortunately, it was alive. Not the worst outcome, but crossing the river had exhausted it. By then, the herd was far ahead. The calf needed time to recover, left standing on the shore like abandoned. Otto and some young men went to find the calf's mother. Miraculously, the newborn calf survived. After riding in a truck, sitting on the car hood, and soaking in the river, it finally reached the lush northern forest and reunited with its mother. Otto and his team completed the transport mission and headed home. Alaska's spring bear hunt began. Atz planned to search along the coast, this time with Lee. They split up. On the beach, Lee taught his wife, Jean, to shoot, while Atz and his wife, Bonnie, scanned with binoculars. At first glance, a black spot looked like a black bear, but closer inspection suggested coal. Atz didn't hesitate. He fired at the spot. The running tracks confirmed it was a real bear. Atz drove along the trail and spotted the bear on a cliff. Crouching behind the car, he fired again, but only hit the rock face. The bear vanished into tall shrubs. To retrieve a hit bear, Atz tied ropes to himself and climbed the steep slope. For a nearly 70-year-old, the physical effort was tough, but his tracking skills were unmatched. Whether it was crushed bushes, fallen leaves, or bloodstains, Atz could follow the clues effortlessly. After climbing nearly 300 meters, he realized the bear might have crossed the ridge. Tracking an injured bear was too risky, so Atz descended. Meanwhile, a black bear stood on the slope, while Lee and Jean shot below. Regrettably, their aim was off, and they lost sight of the target. By the end of the day, the Atz family had no harvest. After the failed bear hunt, Atz and Lee didn't give up. They ventured out again for meat, not just to feed their families, but to survive. Entering the tree line, Atz spotted a black bear. Behind a dead tree, both drew their weapons. Since bears rely on smell, they circled downwind. But despite their preparation, the bear escaped. Frustrated, they decided to split up, hoping to increase their chances. One followed the woods, the other the stream, but by noon, no prey appeared. They regrouped at the earlier spot, built a hideout, and waited. As temperatures dropped in the afternoon, their last chance arrived. Through binoculars, they spotted another bear in the distance. Atz crouched and crept forward. Knowing bears had poor vision, as long as they moved against the wind, the bear wouldn't detect them. Standing before the dead tree, they fired together, but missed again. Atz reloaded and fired into the woods, then joined Lee in tracking. They found blood on a stump, approached cautiously, and finally saw the 200-pound bear. Relieved, they dragged it back, butchered it, and packed the meat. Nearly 100 pounds, enough to sustain them until autumn. With the task done, Lee carried the bear meat, and Ats followed, walking toward the sunset.